to the first official episode of Side Part. I'm Nikki. I will be your host. I'm going to be honest, that is so crazy to say out loud. If you would have talked to me a year ago and said, you're on Bookstagram and people actually follow you and want to listen to what you have to say and you read a ton of books, I would have laughed in your face because that just sounded so unlike something I would do. But books saved me. I thought today would be really fun to talk about myself. Well, actually, no, that sounds horrible. No part of me actually wants to talk about myself, but I thought it'd be helpful for you all to get a little bit of a background on me and then understand how I got here and why I thought it was a good idea to start a podcast. So in January of 2023, I was about 4 months postpartum and having two under two. So I have my two are 19 months apart. It was just one of the hardest seasons of my life. I would not change a thing. I love my kids to the end of this earth. And I think that goes without saying. I think things can be hard, but also they can be really good too. I loved my kids endlessly. I just felt like with one kid, I felt like I had no time, but then you have two under two, a newborn that constantly needs you. You have a toddler that is having a lot of emotions. I guess that's the best way to put it. And they just need you 24/7. And I felt like I had nothing. I felt like my life was just serving other people. I wanted something just for me, but also part of the season is you don't get a lot of time for yourself. And that's where books came in. My sister was actually like, you should read this book called ACOTAR. And I was like, totally not my vibe. There's no way. I'm not going to want to read a book about fairies. No, like I've never read a book like that. Harry Potter, Twilight was as far as I got into like the fantasy realm. But, you know, I just took a chance. I bought it actually on my phone. I opened the Kindle app and I was like, I was like sitting there nursing and I had my toddler sleeping the other arm and I was stuck in a chair for 2 hours. So I was like, I'm just going to buy this book that everyone in my family keeps talking about. They keep talking about this book like it's the best thing ever. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. I think I read it. I'm not even kidding. I think I read it in a day or two. And mind you, I used to read in high school, a little bit in college, but with grad school and other things, I just fell away from it. So I picked up ACOTAR and then I quickly read A Court of Mist and Fury and then ACOWAR. And then I was hooked. I remember like, you know, when you Google books just like ACOTAR and then like, you know, that list that comes up, any book on that list, I probably read last year. So I think I read like 60 books. Majority of those were me searching what is just like ACOTAR. I don't think I've ever come close to that feeling. And honestly, I feel like for me, I'm trying to think of the right words. ACOTAR, I'm not going to ever claim that it was the best written book in the world, but it was for me. It came at a time where I felt like I had nothing. I felt like I didn't have a hobby. I didn't have friends. I just was kind of in that mom, newborn, toddler era. And it gave me something. It was just for me. And that quickly turned into, I don't want to say an obsession, but you know what? I'm not ashamed. It was. I am obsessed. It's fine. So yeah, I started getting really into it. And then in the summer, my sister actually made a Bookstagram and I was like, that sounds so fun. I don't have a lot of friends that read, or no, I have no friends that read. I would like some friends. How cool would it be if I found a small community just to share some, I don't know, book reviews, but also just chat about books? I'd love that. How crazy would it be if I got 500 friends even? I can't even fathom that. I didn't really show my face on Instagram. I just was there for the vibes and people were so nice. Like, I know people say, oh, Bookstagram's so nice and you think it's fake, but it's the people I met anyway were some of the nicest people I have ever met in my life. And I don't know if this is embarrassing to admit, but whatever, I'm not ashamed. I told my husband, I'm like, I think I want to like make this a thing. I want this to be my thing. I want to start making these reels that I see these people make. It's crazy. I don't know if I want to show my face. I don't know if I'm that type of person, but I don't know. It could be kind of fun. Let's do it. And I remember him being like, okay, like whatever. But I can't remember. I think her name's Lindsay. There's this influencer on Instagram and she always talks about getting your pink back. And I swear, just by like, I don't know if it was like the timing part. Like I remember my son was about a year old at the time. Plus joining Bookstagram and reading all these books. And then, finding that creative outlet with reels and creating and doing photography, I felt like I got my pink back a little bit. And I think I became so connected to the bookish community because it helped me in one of the hardest seasons of my life. And I don't know if I would have read ACOTAR in any other season. Maybe I would have liked it, but it became like this series that means so much to me. So, okay, that's how I got started on Bookstagram. That's how I somehow gain this community of people. But I think it's also helpful to know a little bit of my background before I kind of continue on to what I hope for this podcast. So in 2013, I graduated with my bachelor's in communications. I was also a bartender at the time. And if you know anything about communications, no shade to anyone who's gotten this degree, but I personally got it because I was indecisive. I thought I could do a lot with it. I've always felt like I've had an affinity for writing and speaking and things of that nature. So I got that degree because I was like, okay, I can do whatever I want with it. But because it was so broad, I felt like there was nothing I could really do. Or no, I shouldn't say that. There wasn't a job I connected with that undergrad degree. I tried a few sales jobs, quickly realized I'm more of like an extroverted introvert. Like I can play the part of the extrovert. I can be really social. I can do that. But the amount of social battery that takes, it's just too much. I can be the social person at the party, but then I need 2 to 3 business days to recover after that. So fast forward a few years, I decided to actually go back to school. I thought it'd be a good idea to become a therapist. Helping people has always been something that has filled me up personally. I don't know if that sounds selfish, but for me, I feel best when I'm helping other people. I feel best when I'm connecting with others. I guess that's the simplest way to say that. I have always wanted to have a career where I felt like I was making a meaningful impact. So I went to get my graduate degree in counseling. I also got my degree in school counseling as well. So for a few years, I was a school counselor, and I loved it. I was not one of those people that left a career they hated to be a stay-at-home mom. I truly just loved it. But I had my daughter in December of 2020, and I don't know, I don't want to go into it too deep here, but I had a pretty hard birth, and it was also COVID, and there was just so many things going on. And truthfully, I became a mom and I loved it. I didn't want to be anywhere else. I wanted to be with my daughter. We could financially make it work, and it actually made more sense for me to be home. So it was honestly wonderful. I think 2 things can be true. I think you can love the career you have, but also love being home. Or want to be home and still love the career that you have too and work. I don't think there's any one way to live a life or live a good life or a correct way to live. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I just felt like for me, the best choice was for me to be home. And I really felt called to do that. I still think my counseling identity is a huge part of me, probably why I decided to, it probably played into why I decided to make a community online. And I'll kind of get to that in a second. But for me, I just felt like after I had my second, and I always struggled with anxiety, but having postpartum anxiety with both kids definitely lended to me feeling like there was just this gap of support for moms. So after I had my second, I'm sitting there. I started the Bookstagram, and part of me always had this pipe dream of creating this postpartum center for women. After having 2 babies in 2 years, dealing with a host of postpartum anxiety, and really wishing I had support, but also knowing full well I didn't want to leave the house to go get it, I kind of had this idea for my Bookstagram to make it not only a space for people who love books, and literally anyone, if you love books, you are welcome to be here. Even if you don't love books, come around too, because we probably will get you hooked on something eventually. And I think I still find some ways to relate to moms, even if you don't love reading. But I truly wanted a space for people to find community and support. And I think I also run a Discord group, and I do think the Discord group has become like this safe space for moms to find support and connection. I didn't anticipate how hard it would be to connect with people and moms in, I think that's truly been the hardest part about motherhood, is losing a lot of connections you had before. And people talk about it. We all know it's going to happen, I think, like ideally, but until you're in it and you're going through that transition into motherhood, I don't know if I was truly ready to give all that up. I don't regret it. Obviously, I'm here. I'm happy. But Bookstagram kind of gave me that connection piece, that social piece. It's filled that part of my life that honestly, I didn't have time to fulfill. I didn't have time to go have this like flourishing social life. So fast forward, I have this Bookstagram. I'm doing all these things. And lately or recently, I kind of felt like I peaked, right? Not peaked. That's a horrible word. I feel like you talk about that. I didn't peak. I plateaued. I got to this place where the meme reels were great. They were fun. I like doing book reviews, but I'm always this person, and maybe this is like my perfectionist tendencies coming out, but like the what's next piece. What comes after this? What am I doing? Where am I going? And I thought it'd be a good idea to start a podcast. I don't know. We'll see if it turns out to be a good or bad idea. But something that people wanted to hear from me more were long form reviews, long form discussions. They wanted to hear my voice more. And while reels are really great for doing short snippets here and there, it's kind of hard on Instagram anyway to have like these long form discussions, and really the discussions that I want to have, not only about books and writing, but also about life in general. I want to talk about what it's like to be a mom, a millennial, just a person in general living in the climate of, I don't know, our world today. And while I really love the conversations I do have through Instagram and Discord and all these other platforms, I wanted a space that was truly just for long form discussion. So I can talk about my books and have like all my thoughts documented. And another way for me to connect with people. You can listen while you're going to work on your commute, and it'd be another way for us to connect. When I was trying to think of the best way to do this, I initially thought I should just have the Stay at Home Mom Book Queen podcast, but that didn't seem to roll off the tongue. And actually my husband was like, you should call it Side Part. And it's like so not bookish coded. And it really makes no sense other than like, I thought it was a cool name. It was kind of a nod to like, well, one, I have a side part, but two, kind of that like millennial, I don't even know what you call it, resistance to change, and just kind of embracing that like I am who I am. And I know that name doesn't necessarily glean that meaning off the bat, but I don't know if glean was even the right word there. But I think for me anyway, side part is kind of like this fun little, I don't know, it has this fun little meaning between me and my husband. And I don't talk a lot about my family, a little bit about like being a mom, but I don't talk a lot about my relationship with my husband on my Instagram. But he's truly become such a huge integral part for me to do these things. I'm I need to hype him up for a second here, because the fact that I have like lighting and a camera set up and I have like this mixer that I have no idea how to operate over here. I get asked this all the time. How do you even have time to do these things? What, my husband, 100% my husband. I have a very supportive partner who's always kind of been in the wings of like hyping me up, but letting me shine. And he is the one reason I'm able to do these things. He promotes me creatively. He gives me so much encouragement. He's always there to honestly navigate all the technical stuff, because I have my strengths. I'm very artistic. I have great ideas. As far as technology goes, and lighting and sound and all of those things, it is not my strong suit. I do not shine in that area. And kind of also something I didn't mention, I was a photographer through grad school, really. I would photograph weddings and family pictures. And me and my husband actually used to do weddings together and stuff. So I feel like a lot of that comes into play with like my Bookstagram and even in this space. But I think it's important to highlight the way we are able to do some of these things, because a lot of people, I know I'm guilty of this, like the comparison trap, where you're looking at somebody doing something, you're like, how do they do it all? I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't do it all. I have a really great supportive husband they're willing to watch my kids, one, so I can do this, who's willing to help me out with all the technology pieces. So as I'm looking at this computer, I'm just thinking, wow, I don't know how any of this is working, but man, do I have a great husband that can navigate all of this for me. So what can you expect from this podcast? Honestly, I am open to feedback. You have questions you want me to answer, I can do Q&As. I can do long form bookish discussions. I am thinking about doing an ACOTAR reread, because I think it'd be really fun for me, being over a year out from reading them for the first time, to go back through them and just share my thoughts. I want to have guests on here. I think it'd be so awesome to have other authors and writers and people on the podcast, so we can have great conversation, and so we can talk with all of you guys or answer your guys' questions. I'd like to just have regular people on here too. I think sometimes some of my favorite discussions on Bookstagram are just with people who aren't even trying to be creators. They're just normal book lovers, moms, whatever. We have some amazing conversations in my DMs. So I don't want to take anything off the table. I think this might become more of an eclectic podcast rather than a bookish podcast, but I'm really excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to share this journey with all of you. I'm excited to kind of expand my creative outlet. So one, thank you for supporting me. Thank you for listening to me ramble about things this far. And I'm just so excited to connect with you all further in a different way, other than just doing my Instagram stuff. So thank you so much for being here. Obviously, you can find me on SciPart Podcast on Instagram, but I'm going to probably post this on YouTube and all other platforms as well. So keep an eye out for future episodes. And like I said, sorry, I need some water. This is going to be a minimally edited podcast. What you see is what you get. This is just me talking, unfiltered, unedited, and just any thought that pops in my brain. Have a great day, guys.